Before the break, we asked which role did Kathryn Leigh Scott not play? The answer is none of the above. Scott played all 4 roles during the show's run from 1966 to 1971. Daytime TV has been home to some of television's most treasured programming, but before there was OLTL and AMC, that's One Life to Live and All My Children for you newbies, there was Dark Shadows. And today we get a chance to speak with an actress who helped define a classic show during television's golden era.
You know, I've always had twin careers since I was a little girl. I wanted to be a writer and an actress. And in high school, I won a state award for something I wrote for the school newspaper, but I also won a state declamation contest. It's always been twin careers. But I got a scholarship to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, and that's what set me on my course, I think, for acting. When I auditioned for Maggie Evans, it was over a long period of time, several months, and I was a new graduate. I hadn't worked before. But I did go to Hollywood for a screen test at Universal, and when I was there, my agent in New York called and he said, I'm going to put a script outside your door. You've got a camera test for Dark Shadows.
You've come back. They tried to keep us apart. Nothing can keep us apart.
As soon as my agent called and told me, I called my parents, who, and you know, they're farm people. They lived in Robbinsdale, Minnesota, and calling them to tell them that I got the job. And of course, at the time, my bread and butter job was working as a Playboy bunny at the New York Playboy Club. And my mother's first words were, don't give up your bunny job. I haven't heard of this series, and you never know what happens.
You've come to take me with you, haven't you?
Yes.
Then come. Let us go and we'll never return.
My greatest memory of working on Dark Shadows was with Jonathan Frid came on the show to play Barnabas Collins. And I remember he came on with the wolf's head cane and the cape and everything, and we looked at him and thought, oh dear, we're doing, you know, a ghost show. But what I really remember is the very first time that I did a scene with him. And it's still my favorite episode of all. And Maggie Evans, as the waitress in the Collinsport Diner, is closing up for the day. You see her yawning and stretching and pouring herself a last cup of coffee, scrubbing down the counter and checking the lights, taking the keys and locking up, and then she sees a face at the window. And it's Barnabas Collins, who's newly arrived. And against her better judgment, opens the door, invites him in, makes a fresh pot of coffee. And you see these two people discovering each other. And he's very much the outsider. I mean, she doesn't know that he's a vampire, 200 years old. But she's an outsider, a gal from the wrong side of the tracks. And I think she recognizes in Barnabas a kindred spirit.
Collinsport can be lonely at times, but then it's not unique in that respect. Nighttime in itself can be lonely.
I suppose so.
Again, I apologize.
For what?
For striking up a conversation, for wasting your time. I realize that you're anxious to leave.
That's all right, mister. I don't mind talking to strangers. I do it all day long.
You're very kind.
It was just a wonderful scene, the way it unfolded, and I'm so proud of the way Jonathan and I worked together that very first time. I have to say, Dark Shadows has been a catalyst for so much that's been good in my life, and one of them is the writing. My most recent book about Dark Shadows is Dark Shadows Return to Collinwood. I wrote it with Jim Pearson. And it's literally 5 decades of Dark Shadows, everything you could possibly want to know about the history of the show and all of the behind-the-scenes stories. And then because there were certain things that I really couldn't write in the nonfiction, I wrote a book called Dark Passages. And it's a paranormal mystery, and it's a coming-of-age story about a young actress who goes to New York, and she's a vampire. And she gets cast on a television series that becomes paranormal, and you get the picture. It's written with a wink and a nod to Dark Shadows, but it gave me the opportunity to write all of those things that I couldn't write in my nonfiction book. I think it is absolutely amazing that Dark Shadows was not only my very first acting job, but it was the catalyst for a writing career. All these years later, these 1,225 episodes are now being broadcast again for a whole new audience. That is simply remarkable.